Okay, you guys, we're inside of Photoshop starting our basic lesson, and we've launched the application. We've taken a look at File Open to open up a document, and now we're going to take a look at Bridge. There should be a Bridge button inside of the application bar. It's probably not going to be near the button down here for the Windows users. I think it's somewhere near the middle. But if you hover your mouse over here, you'll see that, hey, there's a Launch Bridge button. Click it. In a few seconds or in a little while, you'll see that another application opens. This is called Adobe Bridge, and it allows us to see our images, these nice thumbnails right here. Initially, you may be saying, oh my God, I don't know where my images are and how do I find them? Well, let's set this workspace up so that we're all on the same page. If you go up to Window, you can choose Workspace, Reset Standard Workspaces. That's going to shift all of your workspaces back to their defaults. Give it a second, you'll see all the panels shift back and Bridge is back to its normal default. You can also select the computer and then navigate to your thought space and find your files. You can also navigate to the desktop if it's there and navigate to find your files. For me, I'm at the desktop, so I'll double click the Photoshop Files folder. And when that folder opens up, take a look at that. I can see my images. But they're pretty small right now. They're small. They're too small. But if you go to the bottom, there's a little thumbnail slider. You guys will see it. This little slider right here allows us to increase the size of our images so that we can now see them nice and big. But you see the beauty of Bridge? It allows us to kind of take a look at our images, get an idea of what we have before we even open them up. I love Bridge, you guys. I use it religiously in what I do. But again, make sure you navigate. It should be simple. You're either going to the computer, to the thought space, to the Photoshop Files folder, or you're going to the desktop to that folder. If you don't have the files, you're going to need them. I don't know if some of you guys have the files or not, but you're going to need them if you don't have them. Okay, let's go ahead and double click the 1A start file to open it up from Bridge. And there it is. You know, the first concept they talk about is zooming in and out of an image. But first we have to know, how do we select tools? So go ahead and open up that image, double click it. If you want to, you guys, you can now minimize Bridge so that we're only focusing on Photoshop. In our tool panel, there's a couple of ways we can select tools. And initially, if you know the tool that you want to select, just click it. You can see that the tool is selected. But take a look at the option bar, you guys. Whenever you select a tool, the option bar updates. So my move tool, boom. Marquee tool, boom. Okay? So whenever you select a tool, be conscious of the option bar. And again, make sure you guys are in Photoshop by double clicking this image and get out of Bridge. You guys should be inside of Photoshop, everyone. Bridge should be closed. But the tool that they want us to select, or the tools that they want us to be conscious of, are hidden tools. And you notice that some of these tools have little black triangles in the lower right corner. Well, if you right click one of those tools, you can see, aha, there are some hidden tools underneath. I like right clicking. You guys can click and hold, wait a second or two, and then the tools appear. There's also keyboard shortcuts. Look at that. For the pen tool, it's the letter P. For the type tool, the letter T. For the shape tools, the letter U. And for the path tool, the letter A. So take a look at that. You can actually activate tools by using keyboard shortcuts. But initially, I'm going to press the letter V as in Victor, and you can see that the move tool becomes active. This is a great tool to keep you out of trouble. How do we zoom into this image? They want us to select the zoom tool. I can see that the zoom tool is the letter Z as in zebra, so I'll select it. And then the zoom tool has two options. You can zoom in or you can zoom out. If you click the plus sign, bring your cursor to the image, you can click and you can see I'm zooming in. I'm just simply clicking. If I come to the option bar and I click the minus button or option and click, I'm zooming out. So you can see we can only zoom in or zoom out with this tool. Not a lot going on with the zoom tool. You can also click and hold your mouse, and you can see as I hold my mouse it either zooms in. If I have the plus sign selected and I simply click and hold my mouse, the image begins to zoom in. And if I release my mouse, you can see what's happening. So this is the zoom tool. Um, I'm working in CS5 because this is the only one I have on my system. I actually have what's called Scrubby Zoom. And you can see the Scrubby Zoom option is active. You guys probably don't have this option. But with Scrubby Zoom in CS5, I can actually click and drag left and right to scrub in and out of that image. You guys can also use keyboard shortcuts, correct? Remember Control plus to zoom in, Control minus to zoom out, and then Control 0 to fit on screen. Remember those keyboard shortcuts, they're cool. Control plus, you can always zoom in, Control minus, and Control 0 to fit on screen. Or you can simply select the zoom tool and click with the plus symbol active to zoom in. You can hold the Alt key to click to trigger this zoom out tool. So the Alt key, you guys, triggers the zoom out or the zoom in tool depending on what you have selected. The Alt key. With my plus sign selected and I got the option active in my option bar, the client says, hey, can you zoom into the headlight? I want you to make the headlight brighter. So with the plus sign active, I'm going to click and drag what's called a marquee. And I'm going to deselect Scrubby Zoom. We're going to drag a box around that area. Just click and drag a box, release your mouse, and boom, it zooms right into that area. Isn't that cool? Try that again. Press Control 0, click and drag with your mouse, release, and voila, it zooms right in. I like that. I like that a lot. Just make sure that you're now conscious of the options that are applied to the tool. Now the client says, hey, I want you to make a selection around the headlight and make it brighter. So you say, okay, sure. But you go to your tool panel and you say, okay, which tool do I select for oval selections? The circular selection. Well, for that, you guys, we're going to take a look at the elliptical marquee tool. If you click or if you right click, initially you may see the rectangular marquee here. So you can click and hold and select elliptical, or you can right click and select elliptical. I'm going to reset my tools because you never know when the tools are acting wacky. And if you guys reset your tools in the beginning as you work, you'll find that the tools will give you expected results. So I'm going to actually click the flyout menu, the little drop down arrow right here for my tool preset picker. I'll click the flyout menu and I'll reset all my tools. When prompted, I'm going to click OK. So reset all your tools, you guys. A great way of making sure that everything is set back to their normals. And now what we can do is make sure that you've zoomed into the image with the marquee tool active, the elliptical marquee tool active. You're going to try to click and drag to make a selection around this area. So I like to start at the top left, click and drag to the lower right, and release my mouse to see what's happening. I didn't do a good job right there, and I'm not quite sure if I can go in here and I can reposition this selection, and it's still not working the way I want. To get rid of the selection, Control D to deselect. So if you press Control D, you can see that selection disappears. And try it again. I'm going to start at the upper left, click and drag, and try to push this out, and looks like it's still not working the way it should. How do we transform this selection, you guys? We talked about this early on. When you make a selection, you have the ability to now transform this selection. To do that, you can go up to the Select menu and choose Transform Selection. Take a look at what happens. Photoshop puts a bounding box around the selection. I can now click these little box handles. As I release my mouse, you can see the selection updates. Perfect. And now I got that selection around the headlight that I want. You can also move it to reposition that selection. Be careful to avoid the reference point right here, right? You never want to move an object by this little reference point. This is this point in which things are rotating. So I'm going to press Escape, select Transform Selection, and I'll do it once again. Grab that bounding box and reposition to taste. When you're done, you guys, there's a way you have to commit this, and you should be conscious of the check mark or the cancel box in order to commit or cancel. So that looks pretty cool. In my option bar, take a look what's happening. There's a button now that says, hey dude, or dudette, do you want to commit what you've done, or do you want to cancel and try again? There's also a little warp feature. You can add some warping stuff to it. But for now, you're either going to cancel what you've done and do it again, or you're going to commit. I'm going to commit it by clicking the check mark. And take a look at that. Our selection is now set. To isolate this area, you guys, there's a couple of ways we can do, or to manipulate what's now inside of here. We can apply filters or adjustments. Let's take a look at applying the levels command. And with this area selected, they want us to come to our adjustments panel. And there's a third option right here. They want us to take a look at curves, actually. So we'll take a look at curves. So if you select that icon, a couple of things are going to happen. You're now going to see this graph, which we can control the tonal range of the image. You're also going to see in your layers panel something wacky has happened. We've created a new layer, and there's this wacky little thumbnail. What's happening with this stuff right here? Oh my God. Well, for the most part, you guys, you can play around with this graph area. I can come here and I can click and drag, and I've added a point. I've pushed this point up, and take a look at my area that's inside of that selection. It's now lighter. You can see what's happening with that. I can also come here and click in the middle and move that. When I release my mouse, you can see that this area now has been tweaked. And we're only tweaking the middle area. I'll go down here to the bottom and click to add a point and reposition that too. And now you can see that maybe nothing will happen. But basically, I'm going to actually reset this. You guys can too. To reset that adjustment, just click the hook arrow to reset back to its normal. But this line is controlling the tonal range of the image. Down here we have our dark values. In the middle right here we have our midtones. And then near the top of the graph is our highlights, or our brightest values of the image. And if I want to increase the highlights, well, all I have to do is click to add a point and push it up. And immediately you can see the highlights get bigger. I'm going to Control Z to undo that. If I want to control the darkest parts of the image, I can click down here and drag. When I release my mouse, you can see that that area becomes darker. Notice how only the area that's affected is being affected. Everything else in the image stays nice and the same. The client says, oops, I made a boo-boo. I want you to affect the outside of the light and keep the light intact. So what we can do is we can go here and we can delete this layer. Just drag it to the trash to delete it. You can also select that layer and click the trash icon to delete it. Or you can hit your backspace or the delete key to delete that layer. Go ahead and make that selection again using the same technique that we just talked about with the marquee tool. So I'll grab my marquee tool. You may want to grab your zoom tool to zoom into that area. Click and drag to create the marquee. And then select transform selection. Using that bounding box that appears, go ahead and adjust your selection. Release your mouse to see the selection update. And when you're done, always hit the check mark to commit it, or hit your enter key to commit it. For me, it's my return key on the Mac. Now that we have that selection intact, what we want to do is select the opposite. And this is a great trick, you guys. A lot of times you can select something that's simple and then select the opposite. To do that, you're going to go up to select and choose inverse. Control Shift I, keyboard shortcut. But if you go up to select and choose inverse, a couple of things are going to happen. You're going to now see two selections around your image. And if you zoom out some, you guys, you'll see that, hey, I have two selections. One that's around my light and one that's around the document. So what this is saying is that, hey, now you're going to affect everything except the light. So let's apply that curves adjustment layer again and see what's happening with this adjustment. So again, we can go to our adjustments panel. I can identify the icon that I want by putting my mouse over it. There's levels, or there's brightness and contrast, levels, there's curves. So we'll click the curves. Again, this graph appears. Initially it's intimidating and scary. Just the name Photoshop scares some people. But again, to make the adjustments, all you have to do is click to add a point and then move that point upward. And take a look at that. Everything has now become lighter. I use curves a lot to brighten up images that are dark. And you can see immediately right there, you can have a dark image. You can adjust the highlights, and that image now becomes brighter. If I'm going to Control Z to undo that, I'll click to add a point down here, my dark values. Click and drag all the way down. And you can see that the image is becoming dark, but the area that we protected stays nice and clean. So these are some of the nuances under the hood of Photoshop, you guys. For the most part, understand how to open up an image, select something using the appropriate tool, and then maybe how to apply an adjustment. Looks like we're done with this image. That's all they wanted us to be conscious of. One concept I want to make note: if you're new to Photoshop and you select tools and you're just not sure about the tool that you're using, well, then you can go down here to the lower left corner and actually trigger this to read tool. So if I click the flyout arrow and select current tool, well, then Photoshop always shows me which tool is active. So if I press the V key, the move tool. If I press the U key, the rounded rectangle. Shift U, I can toggle between those tools. I can press the M key, Shift M. So you can see, if you're new to Photoshop and you're still getting up to speed with tools, then you can take advantage of this little tooltip helper. But again, when in doubt, select a tool, and always make sure that you have the current tool selected by identifying, by right-clicking. Make sure you're conscious that some of these tools have hidden tools. The little black triangles, they have tools underneath. When in doubt, always default to your move tool. Keep you out of trouble. Okay, you guys, that's it for this document. We'll close it by clicking the X associated with the document. Don't click the red X, you'll be closing down Photoshop. And then let's open up the next image. When prompted, don't save. I'll go to Bridge, because Bridge is going to be our method of opening up images. And then we can take a look at our images and these nice little thumbnail views. These are called little thumbnails. I can select the next image, pitch in, and I'll double click it to open it up. Again, the client says, hey, you've been hired by the cleanup company to create an ad. What they want us to do is they want us to add some text right here. that says Monday is beach cleanup day. So you say sure. You open up the image. You may want to reset your workspace. Orient yourself to the layers panel. Always take a look and see how many layers I have. Initially we have one single background layer. So we can add to the document, correct? So what they want us to do is use the type tool to type in right this area. So what we need to do is go ahead and identify where's the type tool. Looks like the keyboard shortcut is the letter T. I can also right click that to make sure I have the horizontal type tool active. The horizontal type tool types from left to right. The vertical type tool types from top to bottom. And these are some masking type tools that you probably will never use ever. But you'll be using the horizontal and the vertical a lot. So with the horizontal type tool selected, take a look at the option bar now. What happens? The option bar is tool sensitive. If I have the marquee tool selected, move tool selected, in this case the type tool, bam! I have all the options I can set for my font. I like that a lot. Isn't that cool how the option bar just populates whatever tool you have selected? That's a beautiful thing, you guys. So with the option bar selected, type tool active, go ahead and set up your font family to Garamond. I'm going to select that area and type in the first three letters of the font, G-A-R. I like that. I'm going to press my tab key. The tab key sends me to my... I don't know if you guys can press your tab key to populate, but if you've lost your option bar by some reason, go up to Window, Workspace, and then reset or choose Essentials, okay? Also, if you press the tab key, look what happens. I'm not in here, you guys, but if I press the tab key, let me cancel out of that. Look what happens. I've lost all of my panels. Oh my God. What do I do? Press the tab key again to bring them back. So if you press the tab key, you're going to be closing down your panels. Look at that, and everything disappeared. I don't know what's happening. You can always go up to Window, Workspace, Reset Essentials, or you can hit your tab key to bring them back. Be careful, if you hold the Shift tab, then you'll be hiding your panels. Shift tab. So the reason why I was saying was using the tab key was that if you're inside of these fields right here, you can press the tab key to go to another field. But be careful that you are inside of a field. If you're not, then you're probably going to be activating the panels. So I'm going to change this to Garamond style regular. The font size, take a look at the font size. You can actually scrub. You put your mouse over the T, you can click and drag left and right. Release your mouse, you'll see that that updates. I love the scrubber. Or you can simply click in here and type in 38. When you're done, press enter to accept the change. Photoshop also comes shipped with these presets. These are presets that you'll find in publications a lot. Maybe they use 2-point sizes a lot or 6 points. But these are commonly print sizes that you can find and quickly use. What about the color, you guys? Anti-aliasing represents the edges. Say for instance you use a text and the edges are just jagged and ugly. Well, play around with these anti-aliasing options. They control the edges of your text. And then last but not least, we can control the alignment. I'm going to be left aligning that text. Some of you guys may have it set to center. I'm going to left align. And then the font color. If you click this swatch right here, it brings up the text color. And then selecting the color is a two-step process. And this is for selecting brush colors, colors for objects, etc. It's the same concept. Number one, we click along this bar right here to find the hue of the color that we want. If I want red, I go in here and select red. Number two, I have to click in and select the intensity of red, because we know that red can contain pink, red can contain this burgundy, and so on and so forth. So if you initially select the hue, you have to select that shade or the intensity. I can see the new color and the color before I open it up. this box right here is saying that, hey dude, be careful, because if you use this color on the web, it may not be what you see. So Photoshop always have these values whether you're using web or print, and it says it's warning you that, hey dude or dudette, be careful, this color cannot be generated by a website. You're going to have to click here to make sure that we get that correct color. And if you see another color that's different, then the exclamation stands for print. So right now, if I wanted to print this color, Photoshop couldn't create it. And then you're going to freak out by saying, oh my god, I created and the colors aren't consistent, what's happening? Well, Photoshop is warning you that, hey, although you've selected this color, we may not be able to generate that color. So if you click here, you're in safe, and if you click here, you're safe. And you can see how Photoshop shifted the colors to let me know the safe colors. So just FYI, for the most part, you guys just come in here and rock and roll, and you never pay attention to that. Just know that when you see documents on screen, if you print them, now you may know why they aren't looking the way they should look. Okay, we'll click OK, and now our text color has been applied. To create the text, I'm going to come down here in the area that I need it, click to activate my cursor, and I'll type Monday is beach cleanup day. And I'll hit a period to finish that up. How do I commit my text and move forward? Well, to commit your text, you guys, there's a couple of things you can do. You can click the check mark to commit your text. You can also select another tool to commit your text. But a lot of times, be conscious of the check mark. Be real conscious of the check mark, because that's going to be your indication of whether or not you need to commit something and move forward. When I'm done with the text, I can put it away by selecting my Move tool. And then I'm going to use the Character panel to update my text. You may be saying, well, I don't see a Character panel over here. I see the Adjustments panel and swatches. And so where's our Character panel, and how do we find panels? Well, to find a panel, any panel that you need, it's always going to be under the Window menu. This will definitely probably be one of your quiz questions. If I need a panel, where do I look? Window menu. And look at that. Here's my Actions panel, my Character, Layers. For this, we're going to go to Character. When you select the Character panel, you should probably see it populate over here. And you can actually hide it and close it by clicking the icon. I'm going to open that Character panel up, make sure I have that layer selected, and I can change all of the attributes I want. I think I'm going to make that font bold. You can see that it updates immediately. I can click to make that cursor bigger. Use my Move tool to reposition it. I don't like the color of the font. I'm going to select the color swatch. If I want to sample a color on screen, I can bring my mouse to the document. Look at that. It turns into the color picker or the eyedropper, and I can sample colors from my document. I like that. I think I'm going to sample this trash can. Perfect. So I can click OK, and now you can see that color has updated. There's some other attributes you guys can play around with in the Character panel. We're going to be working with these a lot, but there's our font family, style, size. If you have 2 lines of text, you can control leading, space between lines, tracking and kerning. If you want to make that vertical scale, I can crank this up. You can see how the text gets a little bit longer. I can make my text wider. And you can see how that text becomes wider. Baseline shift, if you want to control where that text sits, you can by controlling the baseline shift. And here's some other attributes: bolding, italic, all caps, small caps, superscript, subscript, underline, and strike through. So we have total control over our character attributes by using the Character panel. So play around with your text, you guys. Feel comfortable with this, but for the most part, I would use the Character panel. Use the Move tool to reposition stuff, and use your Character panel for sizing and stuff like that. All you have to do is make sure that that layer is active. No need to double click to highlight anything. Activate the layer and you're in great shape. Okay, when you guys are done having fun with the character panel, again, this is just an introduction. Close that document up by clicking the X. When prompted, don't save. Let's take a look at our third document that we'll be working with, and that's the 1C start file. Looks like it's a guy with a tie. The client says, hey, can you add some polka dots to the tie for me? I forgot. So you say, sure, I'll do that for you. And you charge them per hour, $50 an hour, right? So let's double click this to open it up. Click OK to accept any errors. What I want us to do is you guys go up to Window, Workspace. Make sure that you reset your workspace to Essentials. And then I want us to open up the History panel. Go up to Window and choose History. The History panel. The History panel is great because it's going to actually record what we do. You can see I've undocked the History panel and now I have it floating. Initially, the History panel starts with this thumbnail and it says that the file has been opened. But let's go, before we start, let's increase our history states. To do that, you guys are going to go up to the Edit menu. All the way at the bottom, you're going to choose Photoshop. Edit, Preferences, and then General. So you guys can see the preferences down here at the bottom. You're going to choose General, okay? So Edit, Preferences, General. For me, I have to go up to Photoshop, choose Preferences, General. What's happening in here, you guys, is these are all the things that we can tweak inside of Photoshop. There's a lot going on. From the interface, we can make adjustments to the interface, the way we handle documents, the way our cursor looks, the way our grids are showing up, colors of grids. But for the most part, we're going to take a look at performance. And then I want you guys to navigate over to the history states. Initially, it may be set to 20. I want you to crank it up to 99. 99 bottles of beer on the wall. Even though you guys don't drink. Increase that to 99, you guys. Click OK. And what we're telling Photoshop to do is we're telling it, hey, Photoshop, record at least 99 actions that I do so that I can step back and delete them if I need to. That's a great safety valve. Now we're going to grab our brush tool by pressing the letter B as in boy. You can see that the brush tool becomes active. You have to verify that the brush tool is active by right-clicking and making sure the brush tool is active. Because if not, you may be working with the brush tool and the pencil tool thinking you have the brush tool active. With the brush tool active, go right here, you guys, and set up the color that you want by using the foreground swatch. And the way we use the brush tool, the way you set up a color is the foreground color is the color that you paint with. The foreground color. So if you click that, out pops this familiar color picker. And again, Photoshop gets boring once you learn the basics. I can click here to find the hue, click here to find the intensity. I'm always concerned about these errors if I want them to be consistent. You can see Photoshop is having a difficult time printing these greens and stuff. But whatever, I'll select that color and I'll click OK. Now I've loaded my brush to accept this color. To paint the tie, make sure you come to the Layers panel and make sure the Tie Designs layer is active. What do I mean by active? I mean that make sure you click it to make sure that there's a blue line. That means this layer is now the active layer. With the Tie Designs layer active, I can come to the tie area and simply click to add some polka dots. Remember, we can increase our brush size using our bracket keys. Right bracket key increases the brush size. Left bracket key decreases. And we can now click in here. You guys may be seeing that your brush is not soft. Look at my edges, they're soft. What's happening with this? What's making this soft? Well, if you right click on screen, you can see that the top hardness is controlling your brush. And when you right click, you guys, with the brush tool selected, you're going to bring up this context menu. So if I right click, boom, look at that. The context menu opens. I can control the hardness of the brush. Say for instance I want 100% hardness. I'm going to press enter to close that up. And now if I click with my brush, look what happens to the brush. There's no softness. It's 100% hard. I'm going to right click and I'm going to make sure the softness or the hardness is set to 50%. I'll press enter. And now I'm going to click in here and take a look at 50% hardness. You can see there's a little bit of softness. I'll right click and set the hardness to 0. I'll press enter to accept that. And then I'll click and take a look at 0% hardness. So you see the difference between the brush, you guys? Soft and hardness is controlling that. And you can always right click to bring up this context menu. You may be saying, I want to play with some of these brushes. Yeah, there's a lot of brushes. Depending on your system, sometimes I load brushes like a maniac. There's a great website called brusheasy.com. And you can see I've been downloading brushes. You got to have so many brushes that I can just make my documents come to life. Just smack it with a brush. But you can download brushes the way you can too. For Valentine's, I've downloaded heart brushes, Valentine cards, and Christmas trees, and you name it, they have brushes for everything. Sports, I got a basketball brush. But what's happening? What if I want to undo this stuff? Well, take a look at your history panel, you guys. It's been recording what we do. And if you expand the history panel all the way, you can see that it's been recording all of my brush states. So if I want to, I can actually step back by clicking a state that's above the state that's active. Take a look at this stuff disappearing. You can see stuff is just disappearing. If the client says, well, okay, I want it back, well, then you can just click right here and put it back. Be careful, because if you delete the states, then you're not going to be able to step back. But there is a way you can simply delete them. You're prompted, hey, do you want to delete that brush state? Are you sure? Click yes. And now it's deleted, and there's no way of me stepping back. That's why I like to kind of step back and activate the one I want. And if I want to step forward, I can step forward. You can even step back to when you open the document by clicking the open state. Okay, it looks like we're going to stop right there. Hopefully you guys were comfortable with this basic. But this is how we'll be using the book, you guys, to kind of help us understand what's happening with the lessons. To be honest, I went through these lessons at least 100 times in previous classes. So I know them inside out. And I actually know Photoshop inside out. So if you have any questions, you can quiz me, pick my brain, and try to get me to mess up. But I know this stuff because I read and I study a lot. Okay, so hopefully you guys are comfortable opening up images using the file open method. Or you can take advantage of Bridge. Look at Bridge. Beautiful. You should be comfortable, you guys, selecting tools, whether or not they have a hidden tool. You should also be comfortable selecting or resetting your tools. That's something you should do every single time. And you should also be comfortable zooming in and out of the image. I think that will be enough for today. If you didn't get the history states and selecting the correct layer and stuff like that, don't worry. Don't worry. We're going to get all those concepts. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Okay, we'll stop right there. If you want to, you guys, go ahead and open up the images and play around with them. Work with your type tool and stuff like that. Reopen the image and have some fun. Because the more you practice, the better you're going to get. When you're done, you can simply close the file, clicking the X associated with the file. No need to save it. And then go up to Photoshop and choose Quit Photoshop. Keyboard shortcut Control Q to quit. When you're done, you can also select Bridge. Keyboard shortcut Control Q to quit Bridge. You can go ahead and log off of your system. Tomorrow we'll pick it up, you guys, with your PSA projects. We're actually going to be making a commercial